Hello. Um, if you're seeing this, or if you've got a notification, you're probably wondering what on earth is going on. Hello, but this is kind of like a very loose kind of stream, just something I thought about doing at the beginning of the week. And after the broadcast of the fourth episode of this season, this run of Talking Con, Cup of Tea with an Englishman in San Diego, um, I'm going to just kind of have a bit of a dialogue with you guys. If you are wanting to jump in and talk to me, by all means, you're more than welcome. In a couple of minutes, we'll dive in. We'll let some more people get settled and join us. Yeah, it's kind of like a State of the Union, because I want to kind of think through my live streams. I want to make sure that you're getting the most out of them, that I'm covering the right things, that the live stream is going in the direction that you would prefer it to go if I'm straying too far from a path. So we're going to get into that. Toby's watching. Hello, Toby. Welcome along. Nice to have you join us. Thank you very much indeed. While we're getting settled, we can talk about that Doom trailer, which I've watched 6 times now. I've just got the video from YouTube and I've taken all the screen caps and I've got high-res screen caps of all the images, because I'm gonna be tearing apart that trailer pretty much for the rest of the evening, because that was something else. I've been turning around and saying there's 2 books that have been adapted this year, which are important to me. One for the sense of scope, and both of them cover deal with very young people dealing with the legacy of their fathers, the sense of plans going behind their back, and the way that they cope with them. Number 1 is Artemis Fowl, which was done by Disney earlier on this year, and if you watched that more than once, you did a damn sight better than I did, because my God, Artemis Fowl was truly a car crash in film form. It was, considering it took 20 odd minutes to get through all the exposition, and even then it was so lumpen and so badly done. Awful, awful, awful. So there's, like I say, 2 books. Artemis Fowl is one. Number 2, this bad boy. I've got several copies of this thing lying around the house. This is one that is literally it's just here. It's in my house. It's important to me. This is actually the reissue that came out as part of Penguin books, Penguin Classics, with a series introduction by Neil Gaiman. I read this book once a year, maybe once every couple of years. Leanne D, the June trailer is what I was saying was good. Lol. Yes, I know that we were talking about Artemis Fowl. Yes, that trailer. I mean, I've been screaming, "Don't mess this up! Don't mess this up! Don't mess this up!" And it looks like it's something else. Did I just smell it? It's my baby. It's a book. I mean, this is a weapon. Look at this thing. You could kill large animals with this thing. But yes, I'm desperately hoping that they don't mess this up, and it looks like they're not going to. It looks like it's very, very impressive. So no, Dune is something special. Right, okay. So the Talking Con episodes, I mean, let's talk about what Talking Con was. Let's talk about where it started. It was originally a live stream that was off the back of the Google Plus San Diego Comic-Con group. It was, I mean, Google Plus was for me the Great White Hope. It was the one that I wanted to save social media. It was powerful. It handled images properly. It didn't compress them. You had to sign up with a name, so you couldn't hide behind a false facade. You had to put your name forward. And 8 years ago, when Google Plus came out, I thought it was going to be I hoped it was going to be a Facebook killer. And the next thing you know, the app was lumping as hell. People couldn't quite grasp the whole idea of groups, and it fell very much by the wayside because it tried to be so many things to so many people. However, one of the things that was appealing as well was the idea that you could live stream, pretty much like I'm doing now, direct to YouTube. That meant that there was the important aspect of what remains about Talking Con, which is you guys. I mean, we've got people who are watching here. We've got Into the Blue Mist. Nothing smells as good as a new leather-bound book. The inside of a brand new Tesla, which I can only pray that I can ever get a book of bludgeoning to. Yeah, it could do some. I mean, look, it's sharp as well. It could do some damage. But there we go. I'm going to be doing a stream later on this month, which the people involved are actually wanting me to do as a record it during the day and then put it out later on as a premiere, which I'm trying desperately to talk them out of. I want to do a live stream because this and what I do is nothing without you guys. I know that we have a small but dedicated and passionate and forgiving audience, and you are as integral to what I do with Talking Con as whatever I do. The way that we've kind of evolved it. I will never not do a Talking Con without the audience involved. There will always be Q&A. There will always be you guys asking you questions, making your comments, and jumping in with your opinions, your thoughts. There will never not be a live stream where you guys are jumping in with comments. I mean, I'm loving how you're talking about the book. So the Solicitor Snake, only 2%, only 2 plus 2. Have you seen the size of that book? I mean, look at it, it's huge. Made of leather, all add metal bindings, and then we can go up in bonuses. Yeah, it could do some damage. It, like I say, started as the Google Plus thing, and from the word go, purely because there wasn't that many at that point, the fandom around something like San Diego Comic-Con. We got the ability to talk to people like David Glanzer, who I would love to get back on to the Hangout. Me and David, the relationship changed about 4 years ago. I did a post on my website, An Englishman in San Diego, which was an opinion piece about how I felt that the international guests or the international attendees of San Diego Comic-Con International were being screwed over because we would only be able to pick up our badges, according to the paperwork, we would only be able to pick up our badges on the morning of the Wednesday of preview night. Oh, sorry, of the morning of preview night, which meant that we weren't going to be able to get into the line to get into the exhibition floor with everyone else who had got their badges mailed to them. Now, obviously, they changed all of that. That first year, they opened up the doors early. I think the next year, they opened up the day before, and they opened up on the Monday. And obviously, things got changed and evolved. And Comic-Con does change and evolve. That's great. That's how it should be. But when I posted that, I did kind of, it was a clickbait article, it was a clickbait headline, and I did kind of squire my relationship with San Diego Comic Con. And then the year after, when I had live streams with David and we had a great relationship. So at that point, it was after the opinion piece. the relationship was still there. I posted on about the highlights of the year, and about at number 8, I wanted to thank all the people involved who had helped the site grow, including David Glanzer, and I put him down as the mouth of Sauron, because the mouth of Sauron is the single voice. The whole concept of Lord of the Rings and the mouth of Sauron is you do not speak to the eye. You do not speak to Sauron. The only line of communication, the single point, is the mouth of Sauron. He comes forward from the Black Gate. He is the voice of the Dark Lord. That was not how it was taken by CCI. And everything went dark when it came to communication with CCI. And then I got effectively called into the principal's office. I got asked to meet up with David, and it was when they had just moved everything, all the offices upstairs to the sales. So you had that square area, and it was like the many offices of the administration. And I got called into a room where a guy sat in the corner taking notes, a guy sat next to David taking notes, and David sat there. In other words, I was being pulled up. And he basically said, okay, what have we done to upset you? What have we done to... Yeah, what have we done? I went, you've done nothing. And they said, well, what was the mouth of Sauron crap? What was that crack all about? And I went, you're nerds, right? You know what the mouth of Sauron's all about. So I got I got slapped down a bit. Haven't had the opportunity. Every time I've messaged David, I've messaged David a couple of times. Number one, to invite him onto the Hangout over the last couple of years, and even his Instagram account got hacked about 2 months ago, and he reached out by direct message, and he turned around and said, would you like to do you want to catch up, and do you want to communicate? And I actually then went to his direct messenger on Facebook and said, David, is that you? Have you been hacked? And that was it. That he went, no, I've been hacked, and that's all I got. I just got slapped on the wrists. I really did. I'm going to get joined here. Sorry. Hello there, John. How the hell the devil are you?
I'm good, Len. How you doing, man? Nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you too. It's good to actually say hi and speak to you. Sorry, I'm just kind of going over a little bit of the history of certainly the podcast which I've done, and my relationship with San Diego Comic-Con, which, like I say, had been slightly squired over the course of the last couple of years. And I didn't help myself. Solicitor Smeg is saying, so you stated an opinion and backed it up with facts. You are evil, sir. Telling the truth. What were you thinking? Yeah, I know. It was all me. Sorry, just to explain as well why John's here. If you are not aware of John Sintra's work, you're an idiot, frankly, because you need to be, number one, following his channel, number one, following his work, because our podcasts do look remarkably similar. Okay, mine's pink now. I know I changed the colour scheme for the new season. Mine's pink and yellow. I decided to go for a slightly more like fruit salad kind of vibe for this season.
It's almost purple, so it's almost Batgirl color.
I know. So the look is very similar. And I'm not going to lie, I think I've been punching above my weight this summer, and kind of getting the kind of guests that John gets. The difference being, the difference is I'm a nobody, and John has been in communication and in part of the infrastructure of comics for years. So if there's somebody who I definitely look up to in terms of the way I want the podcast to go, it's John. Do follow Word Balloon, because it is one hell of a watch.
That's very kind, man. No. I mean, it's all relative. You know, I mean, truly. I mean, I've been doing the audio since 2005. That's when I started. And
really, I thought. No, okay, all right.
Yeah. May of 2005. Wow. May 10th was my when I started the website. I had seen Jonah Weiland from Comic Book Resources do audio online, and there were a couple that comic book podcasters before me, as far as just doing a roundtable kind of show and reviewing books, and solo people like Augie DeBleek had Pipeline online, and Comic Geek Speak were about 8 weeks ahead of me, and they started a little early. And then there was Fanboy Radio out of Texas, Scott Hines, and he was doing it. He was broadcasting from Texas Christian University's public radio station on Sundays, and he had been doing it for about 5 years. And I even would call in occasionally and ask, guest questions and things. So, I have a radio background. I worked in Chicago radio for like 30. I just finished my 30th year this year, or they finished me. I was.
You see, we're both kind of DJs of sorts, whereas you're very much of the radio background. And admittedly, over the last 7-8 years, I've gone into hospital radio here in the UK.
That's terrific, man. Seriously, I really admire that form of radio, broadcasting and DJing. Truly.
I've been a DJ. I've been a mobile DJ, so that's personality DJing, weddings. Sure. Basically, the line I use is I play music at people professionally, not for people, at people. So no, I've been doing that. I've been doing that since I was 18. But then, when I was diagnosed with bowel cancer and I went into hospital again, and this was 2009, 2010.
Okay.
I was kind of reintroduced. I knew about the hospital radio, but I was improperly reintroduced to them around that time, and I was starting to become a bit disillusioned with DJing because there's a definite change in the audience over the last decade or so. There's a sense of entitlement. You must play this for me. You must do this, and there was a definite kind of shift in the way that people were interacting with the service people behind a bar, people behind a DJ stand. So it was starting to feel a little bit off. Went into hospital radio, and it's stretching a different muscle. It's a totally different animal, because obviously you'll know this when it comes to programming. It's mostly done by the studio. It's all done by computer. You can obviously change and move and adapt the playlist to your own style, but for the majority of it, it's very much a case of you're playing the style of the radio that's being put forward, and it was a different muscle. I basically relearnt programming and relearnt presentation, so it was an interesting change of pace, and I do enjoy it a lot now. I just wish I could get paid for it, because it is a hospital radio. It's all volunteer. It's all volunteer.
Understood.
But the reason why I asked you to come on is because, like I say, the shows that we do are remarkably similar in that we invite comic guests on. For myself, because of the format of what I want the stream to be, I also try and get pop culture guests on. And I haven't really succeeded in that regard. I did the last couple of months, but it's been mostly comic guests, because the stream that I wanted to put forward was about Comic-Cons, because there is a definite family and a community which has built up that side of the table. Yes, sure. It's a trade show at the end of the day. You could go, it's futon trade convention, and there you go, you have to go and see the best in futons, or I don't know where the hell futons come. Okay.
No, but you're right, man. I mean, one of my earliest conventions was bodegas, convenience stores, little shops, little mom and pop shops, and I was writing for Boxing Illustrated. Bert Sugar was the publisher. He was formerly the publisher of Ring Magazine. And he was there because he had 100 greatest boxers of all time. Warner Books had a booth, and he was going to be signing at that booth. And at the time, Leon Spinks, the man who defeated Ali, the Spinks brother that beat Ali, he was there as well. And Leon was kind of loose in terms of it was tough to kind of pin him down. And he's like, "Can you help me make sure Leon doesn't leave the booth and wander away, and just kind of hang out with him and talk?" I'm like, sure. But it was amazing, because much like a Comic-Con, all these different sponsors were there trying to get their products in these little mom and pop shops. And I mean, everything from crackers to chewing tobacco to the Thigh Master, the exercise machine. I mean, and all these celebrities like promoting them, and we're there to take photographs with the vendors, with the shop owners and stuff. So we met like Suzanne Summers and athletes,
Wow.
and the best was we were walking by the biscuit Nabisco company, and we heard this voice go, "Hey, Leon!" And it was this very obvious voice, and all three of us turn around and in unison go, "Hey, it's Chubby Checker." And at that point, I'm like, all right, this is the most ridiculous day I have ever spent, having not, experienced Comic Cons yet. So yeah,
Wow.
It's really like one of my favorite like little trade show memories.
Nice. That's really cool. So the one thing that I've seen that's grown up, and I don't know if this is, this is just for me, and obviously people who will be watching this, and maybe yourself as well, will sort of like go, no, this has been something that's been happening a lot longer. The sense of, on this side of the table, when it comes to the fans that are going to these shows, now people are going to Comic Cons not necessarily to see the trailers, the panels, even the comic artists, the talent on the other side of the table. They're going to see their friends. They're going as that, it's that community that meet up and gather at a convention, and it was even more strongly felt this year when there were no comic conventions. And I mean, the whole line of what's the line from American President? People will go and search for something. They will search for that mirage on the horizon, and when they don't find it, they will drink the sand.
Indeed.
And I'm kind of getting that sense when it comes to virtual conventions, that they're desperate for that sense of community, which is why I think the fandom didn't quite work, because there wasn't the two-way dialogue. It was an info dump. It was
right. It's a one-way thing, and you're right. And I think a lot of the online events have been one way. Did you know about what I was involved with last month?
Mainframe. It's one of the ones that has been an absolute godsend for me, because it is that two-way dialogue. It is the one that will interact with the fans. It is a live stream. It uses the same platform that you and I use, which is Streamyard. That interaction, and before you came on, I explained that I would never not do a live stream without the audience interaction. I'll never do one. It's not me. This has always been our show. It's not my show. It's our show. So what's happened this year has been incredibly strange, because up to now I've had some great guests on over the course of the 7-8 years I've been doing this, but it's been sporadic. And even in December this year, it even got to the point where I was wondering whether I should keep doing the live stream, because guests were cancelling left, right and centre. I wasn't able to get anybody on to talk to me, and it ended up me just talking to camera for 45 minutes, which I think is possibly one of the dullest things. And
no, I get it, man. I agree. I think you have to be a very special type of broadcaster, for a lack of a better description, to be able to maintain a one-person talking at you kind of thing. Some of my favorite people, one of my favorite Star Trek people is this guy, Robert Meyer Burnett. I don't know if you know Rob. See, Rob can do it. I mean, Rob involves, letters from his community and things like that, and super chats, and he'll take questions. But essentially, it's him talking for a couple hours by himself. And, and I've done sports talk radio on a lonely Sunday afternoon when everyone is out playing and not listening to the radio, and having to basically provide the conversation, the one-way conversation for 4 hours. It's tough. So I can appreciate it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the thing about, so this year, like I say, December was when I was thinking about wrapping the whole thing up. I wasn't too sure where it was going to go. And then lockdown happened, and all of a sudden there was a lot of people with a lot of time on their hands. And I think it was, let's think, the guys from Vault Comics came on.
Great.
That was one start. I was, and I think I still will. I'll just bring up my my videos. The channel and kind of like look through
Yeah.
the history of the whole thing, because the people that I've been able to get on board, I've been blown away. I think I've said it so many times on my channel and on a live stream, which is how on earth I've managed to pull this off. And I've been waiting for the penny to drop. I really have been like thinking, surely this can't keep going. But let's start with the ones which kind of started things off and got the ball rolling. So, I mean, we had... let's have a look. Oh, even further. Wow. So, yeah, I mean, we had Rachel Smith and Mike Armstrong at the beginning of this season. Okay. So here we go. You could see all the blank spaces there, where I was, like, talking to myself. I had Mark Serby. Mark Serby came on, Joel Meadows, both of which are really good friends, and they were very supportive and kind of came on to hold my hand on occasion. We had Matt Dunford from the San Diego Comic Fest, great guy. He came on a couple of times. Christine Valeda was one of the best interviews I ever did. That was an amazing conversation. She is something else. But yeah, but it was around this time. So you had Mike Avila, you had the guys from Fanbase Press, you had Damien Wassel in there. And from there, it just kind of like took off a little bit. And it was there. J.H. Williams III.
Fantastic. I love Jim. Good dude.
And it just goes... Gil Cabrera from the Convention Center, Paul Jenkins,
Fantastic.
Jimmy Parvey, Chris Ryle, Billy, and it just took off. Shelley Bond, I know you and Shell are good friends. That was something special. That was really cool.
She's the best. She really, I mean, honestly, amazing. I had only had her on audio a handful of times, but certainly during this situation, she's been on like 4 times at least. It kills me every time. She's hilarious. But like Paul Jenkins was one of my first guests 15 years ago, and you spoke to him just around the same time that I did. And yeah, man, no, you're right. I mean, this is, as you know, it's weird, unique times, Len, and I think it provides everyone. My curiosity lies in how are you handling this, and then truly, it's like I keep making the analogy that it's almost like during what it must have been like during wartime on both sides of the Atlantic, you know? And I mean, really, like, my example is the old comedian Bob Hope, who, like, went from hospital to hospital during World War II and would do broadcast stateside. Then, of course, went out to the European theater during wartime and everything and made his appearances. But really, it's just like, this is weird. I think a lot of people are nervous. They need some comfort. And I was hoping to bring some familiarity that we do expect. As you say, I agree with you. I do think a lot of people go to conventions for the community, but I also wanted to give them kind of what they're missing in terms of panels and things like that. So,
well, I think just to interrupt. I mean, that's for myself what you're doing on a almost daily basis, because the amount of output and the amount of shows you've been putting out. They are, and they're 2-hour panels. They really allow the subject to breathe. They're not constrained by time.
Exactly.
Your conversations will go until one of you taps out.
Yeah, it's a hangout.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, I worry that I'm sometimes like, all right, John, I gotta go. Can we stop? Can we wrap this up now, please? Because most people are cool and they know what to expect, having done it with me for 15 years. And I suppose, Len, it's an indulgence because coming from commercial radio, where we had to stop every 6 minutes for commercials or even traffic reports and things like that, or news at the top of the hour, that it's so nice to have an uninterrupted, relaxing conversation. And it's social. I mean, community amongst, of the viewers and stuff is one thing, but also for me and the guests to really just hang out. And I'm pleased to say that a good portion of the comic creator community has accepted me as a friend.
Very much so. Especially when you see them in the Q&A and you see them also interacting as well. So there's... God. The biggest compliment in the world is when Walt Simonson shows up when I'm talking to somebody else. And it's like, oh, look, there's Walter. My God. And I call him Walter because I know he's always told me that he prefers to be called Walter rather than Walt. And it's just like, oh, look, there he is. That's great. Or Dean Haspiel, another great guy.
of these American creators that I'm friendly with, and it's so great that they show up. Or Mark Wade teases me when I'm talking to Zdarsky or somebody like that. So no, it's great, and I mean, because you're right. I mean, especially going to out of town conventions, I always refer to it as really expensive summer camp, because it's like it costs a lot to go, but it's like all of our out of town friends, and we're all together, and we're all hanging out and everything. And isn't this great? And I miss that. Yeah, and that was kind of the hope in terms of doing it, and also learning video. I mean, I think a lot of people that aren't paralyzed by the current status quo of COVID, I'm going to learn a musical instrument. I'm going to learn a foreign language. I'm going to do whatever. And I've dabbled with video over the years, but I never really did it consistently. And I'm like, let me just figure it out.
What's been the biggest thing you've learned about? Because I mean, when before you came on, I was talking about the evolution of the podcast. It started as the live stream off the back of the Google Plus platform.
Sure.
And we formed a group around San Diego Comic-Con. And I think very much like the unofficial blog, we were doing streams for the 3 full months leading up to the convention. We weren't doing every week.
Okay.
It was my then co-host, which was Alyssa Franks from the Friends of Comic-Con forum, who pushed for me to go weekly, and then we started covering New York Comic-Con and all the other conventions as well. And thankfully, with the amount of conventions out there was the content to allow us to keep going.
Sure.
But I think the reason why I wanted to do this stream, and I've called it State of the Union for a very good reason. Number one, the question I'm going to ask is for yourself: what's the thing that you've learned most about doing video? And number two, I'm hoping that we'll have a bit of a conversation about how maybe we can streamline things. I don't know, because the Streamyard platform allows us to send to everywhere. But my Twitch audience is a dog on a string. I swear to God. I don't know about sending out to every platform. I don't know. I just don't know. What's the thing that you've learned most about doing your show on StreamYard as well and doing video?
Well, honestly, just getting used to doing it live. I mean, I'd been pre-recording forever, never afraid of live, having come from, live radio and doing it in Chicago for 30 years. So it wasn't a worry, but just the basic mechanics. And it's funny because in radio, especially when I was just starting out as a DJ, I had to run my own board. And so whether it was music elements or bringing in the news or commercials, it was constantly not only maintaining the conversation, but also being mindful of the clock and what other elements I had to do. So it was fun getting used to including the chat again and watching the chat happen and make sure that I do involve people, when they have pertinent questions and stuff. And that's still an ongoing process, but it's kind of fun because as I went on in my radio career, having various jobs from host to reporter. Certainly my last job I was literally a traffic reporter at one of the main news stations here in Chicago up until April. That's when they let me go. Mm-hmm. So that's great. But then I mean, thankfully too, the willingness of everyone, as you say, I mean, everyone's hanging out and just kind of coaxing 98% of my guests to doing video, because there's a couple that just are camera shy and just don't want to do it, and that's okay. Sure. That's totally fine. I mean, and it's also discovering that my audio audience and my video audience, there's a little bit of crossover, but they really are separate tracks, which I find fascinating because I've only been doing consistent video for the last 6 months. And I mean,
for myself, it's the other way around because I've been doing consistent video. It's only this time round where I've been putting the audio up on SoundCloud and then I attached it to iTunes and Spotify.
Okay.
So it's the other way around for me because for myself it was a pain in the ass to get the audio, trim some of the ums and ahs out, trim some of the fat, and upload it. I tried it 2 years ago and I just got bored and I stopped. I had people messaging me going, okay, we don't necessarily want to see your face Leonard. Thank you.
My biggest concern as well. Good Lord, look at the blob that you are speaking to, sir. I completely understand, and that was always I did a lot of local television and syndicated television over the years, and I die 1,000 deaths every time I look at myself on camera. Good Lord.
Yeah. So there was, yeah. So there was that, and then I think it was B. Dave Walters who came on as a guest, and he turned around and said, "You've got to go audio, so people can just put it on in the car or go for a run or something and just listen." And I went, "Okay, let's try it. Let's go for it." And I started then putting the videos out, the audio out. But
believe in the conversation, man. You know,
sure.
Honestly.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah. I think the thing that I wanted to discuss, and the reason why I wanted to kind of talk certainly to the audience, and we've got a couple of comments that are coming in already, which I'll address in a second, is the direction of what I do, because where I am at the moment is actually very similar to what you're doing, which is comic conversations.
Okay.
And it's not a case of me treading on your toes. It's more a case of where my podcast started, which was a Comic Con community podcast. It was about Comic Cons and creatives' relationship to Comic Cons and the relationship to the fans at these shows. That's where I started, and I'm wondering if I've lost some of that. I'm talking to people like Bill Sienkiewicz, and I'm talking to Chris Ryle, and I'm talking to these incredible talents who I am staggeringly grateful that I get the chance to talk to now. I always try and start with at least some of the conversation about your favorite Comic-Con, your interaction at a comic convention,
okay.
And then so I'm trying to work out that balance, because at the end of the day, I don't want to tread on other people's toes who are doing this, who have been doing it longer and are doing it better than me, and that's you guys.
Yeah, but Len, honestly, I truly, there are some that I'm sure do worry about competition. I don't see it that way. I think
I don't see it as competition. I just don't see it as why watch me when they could be watching you.
Yeah, but you shouldn't. I mean, again, you clearly know what you're doing, and I think that you're going to have you're going to come from a different point of view than I am, because we're different people.
Sure.
So they're going to be different conversations. My every analogy I make in terms of what we do starts with like a big name, like a Sienkiewicz, but I'll even say like George Lucas, and like if you had the opportunity to speak to George Lucas, or as a fan, watch a George Lucas conversation. Traditional broadcasting would be, well, we're only going to give you 5 or 10 minutes with George Lucas because we have other people that we need to present. Well, but I'm a George Lucas fan. I would like a much longer conversation. Hence, you've got people like me that will be happy to sit down with him for a really long time. And as I just said, you're going to ask different questions of George Lucas than I am.
I mean, the one thing I really admire about you is that you do come at the conversation from a slightly different angle. I mean, I think it was just to show that I am a big fan. I watched the stream from last night, and you were talking and you mentioned about an interview that you did with John Cleese, and you made a conscious effort or decision not to come at it from the Python angle. You came at it from
at last the 1948
show, last night 48 show, and the
two Ronnies too.
Two Ronnies,
with the Ronnies absolutely on the Frost Report. Yeah, I'm a massive British comedy fan. Massive British comedy fan.
So you would come at it from that angle. I would come at it from Fawlty Towers. I'd come at from his relationship with his wife. I would talk about his relationship with the people from the Fish Called Wanda aspect. And how I mean, the first question I would probably ask him is about how it was like to relinquish some of the control to the two Terrys on Life of Brian, and let them do the directing and kind of like be led by two members of the group, which I find as a fascinating dynamic, considering that they came from a very democratic around the table
absolutely
group. So we'd all come at it from a different angle. I think that the reason why I wanted to do this live stream is because I wanted to find out about whether find out what my path was, and to make sure that I'm on the right path. Whether I'm inviting the right people on, whether I should invite more comic, because I mean this weekend I've got Julie Tate from the Lakes Festival. That is the one that I'm most interested in out of the guests I've had recently, however interesting the guests I've had, because this is a person who is putting on a comic convention, putting on a comic festival, and that is the core of what I want the stream, or what I wanted the stream to be. It doesn't, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does. No, and it's but again, I think there's value in having both types of guests on, and I'm glad that you do focus on the organizers as well, and that was your main thrust for a long time. I wouldn't fear branching out. I would embrace it and say that, again, they are part of the comics. The creators are part of the comics community too, and the way they interact with conventions, and also getting their perspective on conventions might be enlightening to the audience that doesn't hear their point of view. And also will find comfort in the idea that they're visiting their friends, and it's a great chance for the creatives as friends to get together and hang out. And so that's another aspect. But also, God only knows what this is going to look like whenever the new normal finally does present itself.
That was an eye-opener last night. I was in the throes of insomnia. So at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, I usually take the missus in because she works as a chain manager, or a manager at a pub chain here in the UK.
Okay.
So I would be taking her in at 5 o'clock, and I thought, you know what, I'll just stay up. Sod it. I'm going to go downstairs. I'll read some comics. I'll just stay up. And I put a question out at something like 2:30 in the morning, and basically said, ask me anything. And somebody asked, okay, San Diego Comic-Con 2021, is it going to go ahead? And here in the UK, we have now got what we're colloquially calling lockdown 2.0. We've got some more restrictions kicking back in. We've not got a vaccine. The comic guests that I've had on, especially the more legacy ones, when I ask the question, so what's it going to take to get you on a plane, to get you to a convention, and they are turning around saying a vaccine, and nothing is going to get me anywhere else.
Yeah.
Who was it? I mean, just to bring up the channel again, let me just remind myself who it was, because it wasn't. I think it was Eric Larson. It was either Eric Larson or Paul Jenkins. It was one of the two, and I basically turned around and said, "What would it take to get you on a plane?" And he said, "I have been in this room and in this building for 4 months," and I think it was Eric Larson, and he basically just turned around and said, "If there's not a vaccine, I'm not leaving this house."
Yeah.
And it just suddenly dawned on me, especially last night, because I turned around and said that for the majority of people, there's going to be this this societal peer pressure to open things back up, whether the numbers are going up or not. Whatever the state of the play is, people are just going to turn around and say, "We've had enough. Bring it on. However many people are going to get infected, sod this. Let's just get out there." And there's just because I think in the UK, if we inflicted another big lockdown, there'd be riots in the streets, and I think in the States as well, it'd be the same thing.
Sadly.
So I think I've basically said next year the events are going to happen, but then it's a question about the guests that go and what the shape of what those events are going to look like, not only in the face of COVID, but also in the face of virtual conventions, because I think this is the new normal.
Agreed.
Because people are either going to go, I can either get on a plane and risk this, or I can sit in my front room and talk to someone.
And thank God we have this technology.
Absolutely.
Because honestly, I think there'd be a lot more social problems and panic if we weren't able to communicate to this level. I think back to the communication world of the 70s and 80s, when people had to walk to a telephone booth to make a call, or certainly they had phones in the house, but really, like, we didn't have video. I mean, and that's the thing. So it's not the same. But I mean, truly, I know it's great seeing my out of town friends, even in a video capacity. It's like, oh God, it is so good to see you. So that means a lot, and I think that does make a difference. And yeah, I agree with you. Until this is like measles or polio or anything else where we have a preventative vaccine and
Yeah.
people are truly comfortable, God only knows how long that's going to take. Even when they do, even when live events do come back, they're going to be extremely local. And even then, I think a lot of people are going to be concerned with how many people can be in a room.
I
And at
mean,
least people that are health conscious and
yeah.
aren't just fed up. And it's dude, I got to tell you, as an American, I'm so embarrassed by this amount of percentage in the country, and I do think the majority is still level-headed, wearing masks, keeping their distance. There's a lot of selfish people here in the States, and it really does bother.
You've got it here as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a given. I think it's more a case of mixed messaging on both sides of the Atlantic.
sure.
But I think that's, like I say, if we had on both sides, if we'd inflicted or if we'd have introduced restrictions in much the same way that Spain had, because many people who watch this, they will know about my situation, that my mother, she goes out in winter time to go to Fuerteventura. She goes November to March, she was about to come home, and then lockdown happened, and she was in Fuerteventura all the way through to about a month ago. And in Spain, because as Fuerteventura, although it's a separate island, it's still part of the Spanish Principality. So they introduced the same lockdowns that they did on the mainland, and it was a lockdown. There were police armed on the streets. You were not allowed out in pairs. If you were going to go out, you had to have a receipt showing that you'd been to a shop, and then you were going straight back.
I had seen those. Yes.
It was hardcore.
Yes.
If that had been introduced here in the UK, if that had been introduced in the States, we would have seen a snapback like nobody's business. Partially due to a sense of entitlement, but just the way that we're programmed. I think
Isn't
that's
that a shame, though, man? Because think, Glenn. I mean, again, I'm sure your mother can tell you, and most of my older relatives have passed, but they were of the World War II generation, and
Yeah.
they know. I mean, they knew, and there really was this, again, like I said with Bob Hope, this national sense of we're all in this together. We've got the boys fighting on the front line, but the home front has to do their part as well, and that sort of national unity is just gone, and unfortunately, sometimes that division is fostered by our leaders. And it's very frustrating disagreeing with that point of view and seeing this defiant selfishness of you're not helping other people and it's not a health concern. No, you are invading my personal rights. How dare you ask me to wear a mask and keep my distance? And it's like, don't you see people dying? Don't you see people getting sick? Don't you see these other countries like Spain that, we're hardcore, and now it's not the issue that it was, and that people have adjusted and gone back to a bit more of a semblance of real life than what we're experiencing in our countries. And it's
absolutely
disappointing. Really just disappointing.
It is. There you go. That was our digression into that was our digression into the world of COVID. But let me bring it back to the reason why I wanted to do the stream, because there's several questions that I wanted to put to the audience, not necessarily for yourself, John, but certainly to the audience. We've got two people watching. Please do dive in with any comments I've got on this, because I'm wondering if my questions are a little bit too. I'm going down a very similar path every time I'm asking questions, or the narrative that I'm taking over the course of the hour and a half that I have on the show. I'm wanting to know about my approach this season round to doing the first half an hour as a public stream, and then shutting those streams off, and the stream continues over on the Patreon page. How people feel about that. Because it wasn't a case of I didn't want to paywall it. What I wanted to do was give back to my Patreon supporters. I get $70 through some incredible generosity, which allow me to pay for the hosting, and what I do for my site. I wanted to give back to them. So the idea was, do the live stream. When it gets to about 35 minutes, turn off the Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, Twitch, and keep the unlisted video that's going up on the Patreon page, so the patrons get the full stream. 12 o'clock the next day, the audio goes up so people can hear the whole episode in audio. And then on Wednesday, today, the full video gets uploaded again so people can watch the whole thing. But it's a replay. It was a way from, I didn't want to paywall it, but I wanted people, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'd like to encourage more people to come to the Patreon page, of course, but I wanted to kind of give back to those people that have been generous. So there's that I wanted to cover. We'll dive into a couple of comments. Michael Cooper is watching. Live broadcasting is where it's at. It helps that both you and John read the comments from the viewers. Not all shows do this. It adds to that community feel. I think from the pair of us, and I think this is more the comics landscape, our audiences aren't in the hundreds, so it's relatively manageable. Do you know what I mean? We can handle the flow. I mean, you're in kind
Michael's
of like
a regular. Absolutely, it's good to see you, Michael. And yeah, I hear what you're saying. No, and I know that other YouTubers really employ super chats. So they'll read a question if there's a tip involved.
Yeah.
And I have my and it's so. By the way, you'll forgive me, but I love how we all say Patreon or Patreon in different ways, and some people just call it patron, my patron page, and everything. And I don't know where I learned my pronunciation of it, but regardless, I know what you mean, and truly, shame on me. I keep meaning to be more interactive with my patrons who have been incredibly kind. And I was Rob Burnett. He had a Zoom chat after his live YouTube stream, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I should do. I should do like a Zoom chat.
Yeah.
And I mean,
that's what I did last season.
Okay.
I did it once or twice. The idea was I did the normal episode, and then there was Englishman After Dark, Englishman After Show, and the idea was it was a live stream that went out just for the Patreon support. But this time around, I thought I'd try this model and see how it works.
So are they? How are they? Are you giving them the Streamyard link? How are you?
What happens is, if you go to the Patreon page, you can do a post just for the Patreon supporters. So if you are a Patreon supporter, you get to see the certain posts. What happens is you create all the streams, and I don't know how you create your Streamyard, but I suspect it's the same as mine within the Streamyard platform. Click, go to all the separate channels, and one of them, my personal YouTube, is what I'm using for it. I stream to that as well, but I do that as an unlisted YouTube video.
Yes.
I then take that link, post it into a Patreon post.
Yeah.
So that only the patrons can see that. They go patreon.com, they watch the link on there.
That's good.
It's run as a YouTube stream, so they can do the whole comments, they can interact as usual, but it's only visible to the Patreon supporters.
That's really smart. You see, and this is Len. Honestly, this is what I was hoping for. And then that's why again, I feel no competition. Because even back in 2005 and 6, we did the first podcast panels at San Diego. It was me and iFanboy and Comic Geek Speak and Fanboy Radio out of Texas and Pipeline, Augie DeBleek and stuff. And literally, we were all like guys at a car show with our classic cars opening the hood. That's the kind of engine I use. What do you do?
Brilliant.
Oh, that's interesting. And truly, and it was always just, and then it was funny because, and I won't name specific names, but some of them did get territorial. And they're like, well, wait a minute, why am I giving all my secrets away? And we'd all the rest of us would roll our eyes and be like, yes, secrets. Get over yourself. Or another analogy I would make too is that back when there were magazines, I miss physical magazines, but I'm like,
where's my copy of Empire? It's around somewhere.
Look at the newsstand. I'm like, Time and Newsweek and U.S. News and World Report. I would point to all these different major American news magazines, and it's like they're all on the same shelf. They all manage to put out weekly issues of different points of view. Just relax. And again, my good friends that I've maintained, we all get it and don't mind sharing secrets because they're just, this is how I do it. And having the confidence in what we do individually and being like, that's great. Jesse Owens, the great Olympic sprinter, used to say, run your own race. Don't worry about the guy in the next lane. And that was seriously like one of the smartest things I ever heard before turning 50. You know, I mean, it's like, as I reached, the period prior to senior citizen, I don't yet consider myself a senior citizen at 55. But it's like, what am I doing?
You know what? I wouldn't have actually put you that old, because you have such a youthful exuberance about yourself. So there you go.
Truly, man, being online and doing all this stuff online in what I call citizen media really energized my radio career, and all the frustrations I had with terrestrial broadcasting and broadcast masters and managers that are like, we like you, but no, we just don't have the room for you to do the kind of show you want to do. Those are all gone because I am in command of my own destiny, and I'm doing the kind of show I always wanted to do.
And you find your people, you find your audience. Absolutely.
Yep.
Toby is watching. Leonard, have you mastered or still mastering talking with oneself without sounding like you're talking to yourself? I think you've done well this far. That's DJ training, is that? That's. Oh, I mean, there's a book by David Lloyd, who was. I'm sure John might know the name. He's the producer of Hitchhiker's Guide. Back when it was originally a radio show. He was the producer of Blackadder and a whole the not the 9 o'clock news here in
the UK. Get this book. Keep going.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know he wrote a book. Tell me. So, what did he say? What's his opinion on this?
Well, the book is How to Make Great Radio. It's a nice, tidy little book, nicely condensed. Lots of really good information about proper and good, solid broadcasting. And he talks about, and it's something that I definitely learned when I got back into hospital radio, the idea of you do one-to-one. You're never talking one-to-many. It's something that sometimes when I do the live streams, I am talking to a community. But when I'm talking usually to camera, it's one-to-one. There's a broadcaster here in the UK that only people in the UK may know of, which is Terry Wogan, who's a legendary radio presenter here in the UK, who passed away about 5-6 years ago. Whenever you listen to him, he was talking to you. It was one-to-one. You're not talking one-to-many. In radio, you're talking one-to-one. That's a lesson I learned very early on. And Toby, that's pretty much what I do. So when I'm talking,
well, you've learned the lesson. Honestly, I think you're very effective when you do it. And yeah, hey man, honestly, I'm a massive BBC radio listener. I love 4 Extra. I love the dramas and the comedy shows. And again, even the presenters are very in tune with that idea of speaking to you one-to-one. And again, Chicago was where I live. Was always a great broadcast city and had so many fantastic broadcasters. And I had the pleasure of learning literally at their feet when I was just getting in the business. And I mean, that was always their first lesson. You're talking to one person. Focus on, think of it as one person. I start with hi, everybody. But then right after saying that, it's like, okay. Yeah, like you said, I'm talking to the camera and I'm having this conversation. I know exactly what you mean.
Absolutely. Toby, again, there's a societal resolution and a clinical resolution to COVID. This is going back to the COVID conversation.
Sure.
We're quickly coming up on the societal as we're getting tired of it all. Clinically, this will take a long time. Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah.
Solicitor Smeg, I also wonder what effect will have on badge sales if you decide not to go to SDCC. Will you lose your return? At the end of the day, I was, I go as press, as many people know. This year for Comic-Con at Home, we had to reapply for our press badges. It was such a weird thing to apply for press for a virtual convention.
So yeah, what access did you have? Odd. Yeah, what access did you have as press that you wouldn't normally get? Len, that's a good question.
It happened very much similar to the if it was an IRL San Diego Comic Con, the organizers of the panels sent out press releases. Some of the companies as well that were involved, they didn't all embrace it. You didn't get the sideshow emails. You didn't get your your retailers and whatever. Not everyone embraced the idea, but certainly some panel organizers, they went, okay, let's do this as though we were having a panel and we were going to send out a press release. We've got this press list that CCI have sent us. Let's mail it out. So there was that kind of access. It was then again, San Diego Comic Con at home was a very strange thing all round. I don't know what your take on it was.
Well, I had the same reaction, but also with a lot of charity on my part in terms of this is all new, and I don't think there is a right or wrong way. But we learned. I think
they learned on the fly. I mean, I think there's also that element as well that they were learning on the fly, but it's not something they were learning in the hope that they're going to have to do this again. So they're learning on the fly of an event that's happening, hopefully, just the once.
Right, but again, as we know, the likelihood is it's not going to be a snap back to normal. And now I'm blanking. What's his face from Avengers Endgame? A snap of the fingers, that kind
Thanos,
of Thanos, exactly. Yeah, it's not going to be a Thanos snap or an Iron Man snap to solve everything. So what I did like and still felt like San Diego, it depended on the panel, because some of them got incredibly personal. I felt the Jack Kirby and Denny O'Neil tribute panels were like typical San Diego. I mean, those are my favorite. I don't go to Hall H.
I enjoyed those panels. If anything, as well, I agree. I mean, the small niche panels. I mean, when you go to the actual event itself, you'll know the wandering upstairs of the convention center and finding those small panels, which you were never going to find just off the bat, just wandering into a room and discovering your new favorite fandom. I've forgotten the name off the top of my head. The gentleman that hosted the Jack Kirby panel, a gentleman who I'm a great admirer of, and I'm certain whoever's watching will be able to jump in with his name. A man who likes his own voice. And it was him and two other guests, and I mean, one of them was Alex Ross, and he barely got a word in, and he can talk. And yeah, but there we go.
Danny O'Neil panel was like that too, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Just great stories, and that's what you hope for. No, and and yeah, man. Even working with the mainframe guys, those were the kind of focus panels that I was trying to come up with, and I was really I try to stay humble.
What was their reaction to those? Because I mean, those can be incredibly niche. You are desperately hoping that there's going to be an audience for that. Yes, it's not going to be as big as the Game of Thrones panel or the whoever the panel may be, Walking Dead panel, whatever. These are very niche panels. They're very niche in interests. What was Mainframe's reaction to that?
Well, mostly. Sorry about that. That was the television.
That's okay.
It depended on the panel, and what I tried to do was have a big subject, much like a Kirby, but do it with people that would have intimate stories. So I proposed a Superman writers panel, and again, these are gentlemen that are younger than me by 20 years at least. And I'm like, okay, I got Jerry Orber. They're like, oh, great. And I'm like, and Dan Jurgens, and Dan was writing Superman up until a couple, before Bendis started. Yeah. It's only a year or two ago. And then I said Elliot Maggin and Paul Kupperberg, and they're like, we don't know who those are. And I'm like, trust me, they are big names. I'm like, and the great thing is, if you include them, we'll have 50 years of Superman writers. And that sounds impressive. And even if you don't know the names, if you title something 50 years of Superman writers, it's like, oh. And it was great because the night before, and I don't mean to jam him because he's truly one of my dearest friends, and I didn't even think of it as a jam, but I was talking to Bendis the night before Mainframe, and on a Word Balloon Live, and I said, what are you doing for DC Fandom? And I think it's what's coming on Saturday, on the 12th, when they do the second volume of it. And he said, "Oh, Gene Lewin Yang and I are going to interview Dan Jerkins. So between the three of us, we have 30 years of Superman writers." And I said,
"Got your beat."
Like we're at a poker game. I'm like, "That's great. Tomorrow we have 50 years of Superman." So yeah, yeah,
brilliant.
But that's the thing, man. And again, thank God it was a massive hit. I'm really glad it was one of our higher numbered panels, alongside obvious ones like The Walking Dead, or we had the animated cast of the Justice League for a table read.
That was a good panel.
Oh
that
my
was
God,
a great panel.
Man, Len, I'll tell you, Susan Eisenberg is a dear friend of mine. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to meet her.
I'm a fan, but I've not had the chance.
She's lovely. She truly is one of the nicest people in the world. And in fact, I owe her a call. But I reached out to her and said, if you can get Phil Lamar and maybe, another cast member, I don't know. And she's like, one or two, I'm getting everybody. And I'm like, okay. And she is such I call her Spartacus, because she is the one who has really whipped up the fandom and said, hey, we want to do a new Justice League animated movie with the original cast. And it's like, why not? I mean, and again, I love what DC Animation has been doing. I like that they've opened it up and other actors have had the opportunities to play the roles. I'm a massive fan of James Tucker, who took over from Bruce Timm and spent, several years as the man and was the executive producer, kind of putting all the teams together, both technically and acting wise, in terms of these productions. But all that said, it's like, yeah, but there's like literally two generations of fans, ones that were adults 20 years ago when that show started, and kids that grew up on it that are now adults. And also the shows remain in syndication. Like, there are generations of Justice League fans that like that cast and want that cast back. And so it's like, why not? So yeah, Susan has just really beat the drum for that kind of reunion. And as I've become better friends with her and stuff, it's like, hey, whatever you need to help you make this happen. So yeah, and it's the cast, and again, they really responded. It was terrific. So no, I think you got to. You want that big audience. You want as many eyeballs as possible, and also the Reed, who puts on New York Comic Con and C2E2 in Chicago, and I don't know which British shows they own or European.
They own MC. Yeah, they own the MCM brand over here.
Okay, and I know they have a Paris show as well. Sorry.
Okay.
And it sounds the same way, man. When I'm broadcasting and somebody, like a cat walks through the shot or something, I'm like, it's all good, man. It's all good. Keep going. But yeah, I Mainframe, our ambition is at a smaller scale than San Diego or DC Fandom.
I don't know. I mean, between the two, I enjoyed Mainframe more because there was that sense of two-way dialogue. There was that. I mean, I did a post about the pros and cons of SDCC at home, and one of the comments I had, one of the criticisms, was that they didn't embrace some of the technology of YouTube, that they didn't make the videos premieres, so that maybe the panel guests or panel hosts could jump in on the Q&A and interact with people as the comments were coming in. The video's playing out as a pre-record, but there could be a sense of dialogue. There was the comments are turned off and are still turned off as far as I'm aware. There was no Q&A, so it's just a video being played out. With Mainframe, I mean, number one, the ambition. It's a real high wire act. And especially with the last one with the multiple halls. I mean, wow, that took some bollocks.
I'll tell you, that shows you the strength of our production crew and how dedicated they all were to put on a really good show. I mean, it really was that, hey kids, let's put on a show. Yeah. And real dedication, honestly. I mean, but go on, because I agree with everything you're saying in terms of, I love the interactivity. And I agree. It's funny, Jeff Johns and I pre-recorded, started to do reviews of Stargirl, and then he got busy and couldn't do them after a while. But I premiered on YouTube one of those conversations, but I was wise enough to stay on the premiere and answer questions while it was going on. So that was great. Yeah, you're right. And I mean, Star Trek Day yesterday. I don't know if you're a Star Trek person.
I did. How the hell they did, what was it, 8 panels in 3 hours? I mean, it reminded me of the San Diego Comic-Con at Home Star Trek panel, which was 40 minutes of Discovery, 10 minutes of Lower Decks, 10 minutes of Picard. And I'm going, what can you do? What can you say in that short space of time?
And it was so controlled and so dry. And just, again, how are we great diversity? And it's like, I've been on the ride for most of Star Trek's existence. And you don't have to trumpet your diversity to me.
Good point.
It's self-evident on the screen. What else have you got for us? And
to be fair, I believe that they needed to reinforce that for 2020. We are in a period of history where diversity and forced diversity and
there's nothing wrong with it, but isn't it self-evident?
It's conversations at the fore.
But isn't it self-evident when you look at the cast, and it is a multi-colored and diverse cast? I mean, and also, man, I'll tell you Star Trek first, because sorry, Len, because you probably already know when it comes to Star Trek, I show up.
You know your stuff. You wear it on your sleeve.
Well, but I was going to say the way they really blew it with Shatner, and really kind of stiff-arming Shatner, and I have no idea. Maybe Shatner was asking for a fee. I have no idea. I have no idea. But they really mishandled it, and I mean certainly having Will Wheaton moderate a panel and having George Takei on the panel would likely make it an uncomfortable environment for all three of them, to include William Shatner. But he is such an important part of Star Trek that his non-participation is really stupid, frankly.
I was curious as to see. I mean, I'm certain it will come out because, let's put it this way, on Twitter, the man won't shut up. So he will say something at some point.
He has. He has. I mean,
has he already addressed it?
Oh well, not in terms of why, but I mean, certainly his. Gee, I hope they have fun. I guess my invitation, or Marina Sirtis, who I adore, especially being a fellow Greek person. She's like, I guess my invitation got lost in the mail, and it's like, yeah, I know Marina Sirtis is a loose cannon, but that's why that's why the fans love it, and to so regiment the, if that's the proper word, or you
it applies.
Yeah, I mean that's been the problem. I think with the Reed shows, with San Diego, and with fandom, and now with Star Trek,
I am hoping that Reed Pop learned from the various shows that have happened, and that Metaverse evolves and it becomes a more. Yeah, I'm hoping that Metaverse does something else. Very quickly, we got to return to the Patreon point, and this is very much one of the reasons why I wanted to do this stream. Speaking as a non-Patreon, the most fun I get out of the podcast is the interaction with you and the viewers. Catching up when you post a full show later just isn't quite the same. That's what I need to know. This is what I need to find out.
I hear you, man. No, and I hear, and that's always my concern, because as much as truly, and I thank them every episode on the audio and try to on the video as well. The patrons are incredible, but I really feel like we're still growing our audiences, and that there's, so I want to involve everybody, and I want to provide a product that is accessible to everybody. But I get what you're doing too.
I'm curious about, maybe, because what I do is I'm posting them at 12 o'clock here in the UK. So at least then here in the UK, they can watch at lunchtime or whatever they can do. I'm curious about maybe on a Wednesday, setting the video as a premiere and interacting with people watching live. I don't know. Let me know into the Blue Misters. Tell me what you think about that.
Yeah.
Although you're not interacting with the guests because it's pre-recorded, let me know if that would work. I don't know. Solicitorous Meg, it's a good point that you put up. I do find myself rewatching old episodes on the lead up to STCC to get hyped up. It's my regular thing to watch the A Fan's Hope, the documentary about Comic-Con. It's about 3 weeks out. That goes on. That's
fun. Absolutely, man. That's cool. Doug Benson, the comedian. I don't know if you know about him.
Oh yeah.
Okay. He had a couple of years where he was just, and you might have even seen him, where he was videotaping his San Diego experience, where he's literally in the gas lamp district, literally stumbling around with a camera following him and stuff, and him just like saying hi to people. And I love his San Diego specials because they really do give you that street atmosphere of the gas lamp district. I always tell people who are unfortunate, can't get in the convention, but are like, oh, like a good friend, a radio friend of mine, she and her family were doing a car trip through California, and she's like, we were going to go through San Diego around Comic-Con. I'm like, do it, because there's so much fun stuff happening outside the convention that's free, and still, and she had little kids. I'm like, your kids will love it. And they just do. They have all these, the crazy things, as you know, that they have there, like the South Park little thing you can walk through, or the Walking Dead stuff, or just everything. I mean, it's great. So, and even to the panels that they have outside the convention center and that are in the open air and stuff. So I'm like, it's not exactly the same, but it's a lot of fun.
I mean, those were put up as well by. I mean, I know IGN do some. They were put up by Comic-Con HQ before that imploded massively.
And Zach Levi's charity. Zach Levi's charity too. I want to say Nerd Machine. Wasn't it called Nerd Machine or whatever?
Nerd Machine was the organization, and Nerd Machine presented Nerd HQ. They effectively got railroaded out of town.
Really?
By CCI. Because they felt that, well, there's several reasons. Number one, the guests that were coming for Nerd HQ were picking and choosing between their obligations for CCI, and CCI felt that they were kind of taking a little bit too much of that attention. I don't think they appreciated sharing the toy box, as it were.
Yeah.
Not only that, but it got a little bit fractious there for a while.
You know what I don't like, Lynn, is the stuff that they put at the library.
I've started to get into that in the last couple of years. Well, when I was going the last couple of years, very much so.
It really bothered me, and it disappointed me. And I mean, as someone again who, like, we started doing the podcast panel in 2006. That was the first year that San Diego allowed a podcast panel. We were in the convention hall, and it was because of that. It was a lot easier to book creators and entertainment people to be in the podcast panel. And really, I took over booking it, I want to say around 2010, and I stopped around 2014 or 15 because they pushed us off to the library. And it's like, great, you've made it impossible now for us to do anything other than promote our podcast, because it was easy to ask a comic book writer or artist to join us, or Mark Bernardin before Mark Bernardin was with Smith, and he was just there covering, or I guess he was with Kevin, but he was there also covering the con for Entertainment Weekly magazine or Playboy or any of those things. And he's like, I can't leave the floor for an additional hour in terms of walking from the convention center to the library and back,
and then the change either side as well. So
yeah. And it's just and really, I mean, and I would talk to the programmers of the con, and they're like, well, it is what it is. And it's like, well, then I'm not going to play anymore. I mean, I understand, and you can't fight City Hall, as we say, but it's like, all right, that's disappointing. So I stopped doing the podcast panel, because I'm like, it's not worth it. It's the 50 people or so that would show up really enjoyed it, but again, it's like, to get a creator to leave the floor for 2 hours was a little much. Yeah. So.
I'm going to let you get off.
Hey, buddy.
We'll kind of start wrapping things up.
Sure.
When it comes to, I mean, I'm asking you the question, but I'm also asking me the question, if you know what I mean. What do you feel you see your podcast becoming down the line? Because I'm starting to see you doing more the Outer Limits episode rewatch, the Lower Decks reviews. Those are starting to become more prevalent as part of your programming. What do you see as kind of where you're going with Word Balloon?
Those are larks. I won't deny it. They're really. I mean, I am a massive Star Trek fan. I would imagine I'll probably do some sort of Star Trek review. I really, it's funny. I finally started pushing those off into their own feeds, and I'll assess things. And if I find there isn't the interest in those, maybe they'll fall by the wayside. Word Balloon is the main engine, and Word Balloon. I'm pleased to say that beyond the comic creators, in the 15 years I've been doing it, I've still been able to do pop culture detours when the opportunities have come up to talk to filmmakers or whatever that aren't necessarily doing comic adjacent projects, but are comedians. I mean, Tony Hendra from Spinning Image and Spinal Tap and all that. It was such a thrill to get to speak to him and talk comedy with him. The Cleese thing was a meet and greet that I still haven't even posted on Word Balloon yet.
I really want to see that.
Yeah, it was just 3 minutes. Please. Yeah, I haven't shared it yet. But yeah, when those opportunities come up, I'll do them on Word Balloon.
I think that's what it is. I mean, for myself, I mean the opportunities that have come up to the guests that come on. I mean, like I say, when I was leading up to this, and the ones leading up to San Diego Comic-Con, I usually try and get one big guest in the month before Comic-Con, and that's kind of like the big show guest. I've had like 8 or 10 or 12 over the course of it's like Sienkiewicz. I never thought I'd get the chance, and I genuinely thought, because this year the idea was, and did it for last season as well, make it a tight hour, because I didn't want to extend my welcome. I just wanted to nice tight hour and then in and out. And I think it was Bill Sienkiewicz. It was the Donny Cates one, which was 2.5. And like I say, I thought I'd get maybe 40 minutes with Bill. 2 hours later, and I'm bouncing around like a kid in a candy store.
Sure.
I'm going, this is brilliant. I was absolutely thrilled, and I cannot understate just how lucky I know I am to talk to the people that I've spoken to. Certainly this season. And I've got some more to come, and I'm really looking forward to it.
And that's the thing, man. Again, we don't know how long we get back to some sort of normal. It could be years.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like you just got to take it one day at a time. I like the opportunities that it has provided, and trust your taste, Len. I mean, that's what I do. And again, like satisfy yourself, because
listen,
is that there's a mutual audience that likes what you do and likes what I do, so they trust us, and just have a good conversation and enjoy.
I'm just going to continue to steal blatantly from you. You are the reason why I now have opening credits.
Great. I know. So like a few people are like, "Hey, enough," and I'm like, "No, that's gathering the audience. That's like letting them know, and they haven't missed any of the conversation yet." So I really don't mind that it's 90 seconds of intro and then all right, now we'll start.
Hey, listen, I learned how to animate in Sony Vegas or Vegas Pro with that, so I'm more than happy with what I learned out of doing that intro. Animated it myself, put it all together myself.
That's excellent, man.
There you go. Yeah, that's cool. John, it's been an absolute pleasure. I was thinking maybe you'd come on for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and just kind of share your perspective, certainly on the live streaming and how we're doing. But it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much, indeed, for coming on.
Len, my pleasure. Seriously, I enjoyed the conversation, and anytime you want to talk, you know where to find me.
Thank you so much. If you do want to just let everyone know, where can people find you?
Sure, on YouTube, it's under Word Balloon. That's the Word Balloon channel. The podcast, I'm part of the Spreaker Podcast Network. If you just search on your podcast
which is better,
app,
just a quick thing then. Which is better? Because I post to SoundCloud and I pay for SoundCloud.
It's funny. I still have my SoundCloud account, and I am always interested in people that use SoundCloud regularly. For some reason, I still have to figure out how to put my regular feed so that when I just post something, it'll appear on SoundCloud.
Yeah. And
maybe, hopefully, things have changed. I should really check on that. But I started, using the traditional iTunes, and Libsyn was my original host.
That's the thing. I keep hearing about these different options. I'm wondering if I'm shooting myself in the foot financially. I don't know how much I'm outpricing myself with.
The great thing was, after I had established myself about 4 years ago, Spreaker, the podcast network, approached me and said, "We'll pay for you," which I'm like, "Wow, thank you." And much like YouTube, they run pre-roll ads on the audio, and that's a nice little income. And I'm glad to say that my audience is patient and listens to the commercials and does it. It's totally algorithm based, and in fact, there have been some political ads that I don't agree with that people are like, "Hey, how come you're running those ads?" And it's like,
ouch.
Sorry, it's not me. It's really the network that's a money making thing, and they take everybody. So nothing. I mean, again, it's the labor versus.
It's the rough with the smooth, swings and roundabouts. Absolutely. What are you gonna do?
But no, honestly, I'd love to. You and I could have a conversation sometime and compare notes on SoundCloud, because I know a lot of people that use SoundCloud. I don't.
I think I just started with it because it was certainly as a DJ when I was putting some DJ mixes up there. It was just the platform I used.
Sure.
And certainly when I've used it now, it's great for stats. It's great for getting very metric in terms of where people are listening from, what they're listening to, which episodes they're going back to. You're not going to get any of that metrics from iTunes. You're not going to get that from Spotify. I get it from
Libsyn. You did from Libsyn, though.
There you go. You see, this is what I need to
you
learn.
Pay for Libsyn as well. I mean, that's the thing. And Spreaker is decent with stats. I wish they were a little more granular and a little more like Libsyn. But again, you can't fight City Hall. So
true.
And again, they give it to me for free, so I can't complain.
Yeah. So I think that's the reason why I did this stream, is because I need to learn. I need to learn not only better business practices. It was really thank you so much indeed with that comment into Blue Mister, because that's the kind of thing that I wanted to find. It's the kind of thing that I wanted to learn about me doing the Patreon only stream. So thank you very much indeed for that. If you're watching this back, because it is going to go up on YouTube and Facebook, if you're watching it back, comment below. Let me know what you're thinking about what I'm doing. Am I repeating myself in terms of questions and the way that my narrative flows? Is there some way I can break it up? Is there not enough convention news? Am I front loading it with the interview? Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you would like to see more of, because at the end of the day, this is your show. Tell me what you want more from Talking Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. John, again, it's been a pleasure. Everyone, go and subscribe to Word Balloon if you don't, and if you follow me, and if you don't follow Word Balloon, you're an idiot. Sort yourself out. Have a bloody word with yourself. Follow him on Twitter, because you can also watch him on his Periscope, and you can watch it very much like my show. You can watch it on all the different platforms. Absolutely. And it really allows you to get interactive. Watch his show. Very much, very, very cool. So there you go. Right, I'm going to get off. John's going to get off. We're going to say goodbye. Thank you so much indeed for indulging me on this one. It's been an interesting conversation. Julie Tate this Sunday. The week after, we're talking to Chris Condon and Jacob Phillips from That Texas Blood. So yeah, we're going the other way. We're talking about an actual book as well. We're arranging today that we're going to have a special episode about The Department of Truth, which is a book which I have been raving about, because Martin Simmons has shared with me the first 2 issues, and it's blown my goddamn gourd. It's absolutely staggering. The first thing I'm going to say when the guys come on is congratulations on your Eisner win, because I'm willing this into reality. It's a stunning book. Hopefully, we're going to be getting everybody involved. James Tynan IV, once he's woken up, and hopefully we'll get him involved and get him invited. Martin Simmons wants to come on and talk. Aditya Bidikar, we'll get him involved. We'll do a special episode on that. We've got Elsa Chatirier coming down the line.
I love her. She's terrific.
I can't wait to talk to her. I really can't. That's going to be a fun episode. Do subscribe. Do hit the notifications. Our shows go out, and hopefully you will stick with us. But as always, again, whatever, comment below and let us know what I can do to change it, evolve it, and keep it growing. So there we go. John, yourself, and from myself and John, thank you very much indeed for watching. Take care and enjoy the rest of your week. And we'll see you on Sunday for another Talking Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. Take care.